Okay, we're going to write some helpers to push and pop the graphics context so that we can save and restore when we make changes that we want to be sure we keep contained in a single subroutine. We're going to work on the draw center underline method that we didn't do last time, and we'll look at whether there are other places we should save and restore our graphics context. So to work we go. All right. Now, I told you in lecture that one of the things we want to do often when we're doing our drawing subroutines, we want to be able to save the graphics context and restore it. So we save by saying push. So private func push context. What it's going to do is it's going to push the context, and then we're going to have it return an optional CG context. And then we're going to have a pop context, private func pop context, and it will simply restore what we had pushed onto the stack. Okay, now the way we do the push, there's a method called UI graphics get current context, that one right there, and see it returns a CG context optional. Okay, so because it returns a CG context optional, we're going to do a let context equal that thing. Now, we want to, on the context, then call a method known as save g state. So context dot save g state, and notice when I hit return there, it automatically inserted the question mark for optional chaining, saying if this is non-nil, then go ahead and call save g state. Okay, great, and then we'll return whatever we got back for the context. Okay, so that's our push context, and let's see, on the pop context, we just go to UI graphics, get current context, and we say, would you please restore G state? And notice again it inserted a question mark for optional chaining when I had it do the autocomplete. Okay, so push and pop context. All right, now, because this is a little unwieldy to write this stuff all the time, UI graphics get current context dot save G state. Anyway, okay, this will read a lot cleaner. So now when we go work on our draw center underline, first thing, let's construct ourselves an underline Bezier path. So let underline equal UI Bezier path, and it's going to be a pretty simple path. It's just going to be a straight line. And what we need to do is we need to figure out, okay, where is that thing? Okay, I need to know, so here's the width of my text, and my text bounds is showing me how far I want to be f away from that text, the bottom of the text bounds here. And I want to be g inset, and g on both sides there, inset for the underline. Anyway, so I need to do a little calculation here that can get a little hairy, but let me just show this to you, and I don't know if it'll be easy to understand this or not. But text bounds dot origin dot y. So the y offset, we're going to go to where our text bounds origin is, and we're going to find that. This should put us at the top of the text. So we need to add on to that text bounds dot height. Okay? Now, we need to add on to that the font descender. Now remember, font descender is a negative value, and so this is going to bring us back up. Our y is going to reduce as a result of adding this on. But then we also want our underline offset, which if we look at our constants up here, not our constants, our computed properties, our underline offset is 3 1/3% of the width, and our underline inset is 2 1/5, basically, percent of the width. Okay, so back over here. So underline offset. Okay, that's our y offset, and now we have those values. The first, before I draw things, before I change anything, I want to push the context. So I call push context, and immediately the compiler complains about this, saying, hey, look, the result of push context is unused. The way you get the compiler to quiet down about that is just assign it to underscore, saying, I don't care about the result. I know it returns a value. I don't care about it. Okay, now if I have a push, I'm going to have a pop. So there will be a pop, and in between here is where I do my work. Okay, and so I'm going to go get my suit color, and I'm going to say I want to set the stroke. Now this is why I want to push the context and pop it, because I'm changing the graphics context now. And I don't know what everybody else is doing, but before I change the graphics context, let me save it and restore after I'm done. So set the stroke. And now let's go modify our underline. So underline dot move to a point, and the CG point that I want to move to is going to be X. Okay, so we take our text bounds dot origin dot X, and that's the left-hand side of that 9 that we saw in the previous graph. And now we want to add on our underline inset that we had looked at. Underline inset, that one. Okay, and now my Y is going to be, it's just Y offset. Okay, I've already calculated that up above here. All right, so maybe that fits on a single line just fine. Okay, now then I want to do an underline, and I want to say dot line 2. So not line 2, add line, sorry. Got to look at my notes. Add line to CG point, and the CG point here is going to be X. Okay, so let's get our origin X, and let's add on the width of the text bounds. So now we're on the right-hand side of the text bounds, but now we need to come back off by the amount of our underline inset. Okay, and then the Y is also our same Y offset that we had before. Okay, now so we've got our Bezier path set up with the initial point and the line to the next point, and now we just need to stroke that thing. Underline dot stroke, and bingo. So we have not set a line width. Let's do that. And the line width, you can imagine, should change as the card scales. So the other bit that we want, besides setting the stroke up here, we're going to go to our underline object, and we're going to set our line width. Let's see. Not dot set. It's a property. Underline dot line width. There we go. Equals. And now another computed property I have up here. Underline stroke width is basically 1% of the width of the bounds. Okay, so underline stroke width right there. Okay, and now what have I got? Are we all correct? Yeah, okay, let's run it and see. Actually, I don't even need to run it. I can go to my storyboard, and it should calculate right here. So presumably when it finishes building, I'll see it there. But there's the underline in the simulator. Here it is in the storyboard. And if I change this to a 6, I also get an underline. And if I change it to a 5, I don't get an underline, or a 14, I don't get an underline. Okay, so it seems to be working fine. Okay. We will, the last step that I promised. We're going to, where else do we make modifications to the graphics context? Well, if you remember drawing the base card, right up here. Here we're setting the fill, and that's something that I don't necessarily want to have propagate everywhere. So this is a place where, again, I could say push context, and when I'm done, pop context. And it's a best practice to, when you make a graphics context change that you don't want to be universal in these drawing subroutines, you just push and pop. Okay, in the next part we'll continue with the square and other aspects of drawing the card.